I wanted to start off by showing you my face. I got up a little while ago and you can tell the swelling is there. When they see the videos with me looking normal or kind of normal, they said they get so excited. The money is there. This is where their desire for money is. When they first started talking to me, that I could hear clearly. See, this is what I'm trying to explain, and I'm going to try to make this video more about what they're telling me than about just the symptoms. It's about fantasy relationships. And I want to show you again. They said they darken this so that I look darker. Yeah, that's part of the fantasy relationship. I'm going to try to put this together. They talk so that they can, like I told you in another video, I lose my train of thought when they talk because they're inserting things. The way they said it was supposed to happen is that it was supposed to be a natural thing. Meaning, if they did this to somebody who wasn't, I don't know, it would seem like that person was naturally being destroyed. Meaning maybe they had Alzheimer's, maybe they had some sort of mental illness, schizophrenia. But because of my age, I think part of it, when you're young, you say, oh, I want to get older. When you get old, you say, oh, I wish I were a little younger. But I reached a point years ago in my life when I was happy with my age, and I accepted my age as something that, maybe it's because of life, as something that was good for me. So because of my age, it's odd that all of a sudden all of this would start happening to me out of nowhere. So that helped me. My age helped. So what they were saying to me, and that's when the talking was so clear, was that they were going to break me like a prostitute. And then they would be able to put me on the streets, or they could get me to marry someone, or they could get me to do other things sexually. And I'm like, I'm 40-something years old, don't have a boyfriend, wasn't interested in being a prostitute, And that's my point to them. It just seemed to be so odd. Like, so where did that come from? And that is the point. It's it's when you hear someone talking to you about things that you weren't thinking. And that's why I knew it wasn't my head. When people were talking about this and they're saying, well, they're reading my mind, that was not on my mind. So that answers how I knew this wasn't my mind. The other point is it was out loud. So my mind doesn't think, my mind isn't out loud, But the worst part about it was they said they did it to break me. It was done to break me. So that's a big chunk of this. The other big chunk of this is that because my hearing is more normal now than it was before, and I told you in a previous video, I used to hear it so loud, and my head would throb, and they would try to make it seem like I could feel it, meaning my head's throbbing, they're saying the words, and I could feel every word. So they were saying that it was this is to quote them, this was designed to make me hear the wrong things. So just like when I told you when they wanted me to see things and they wanted me to see the wrong things, and I told you in a previous video, if I say, for example, these are my other glasses, these are the ones that fall off. If I'm looking at glasses and they say classes, or if I'm talking to someone and the person says, could you pass me the glasses, and I hear classes, I would say, what are you saying? So it's by their own words, it's designed to hurt me, to break me. Because if I'm working in a job where I have to interact with people and I can't hear the right things, I would make big mistakes. I would see the wrong numbers or see the wrong things. I would talk to someone and hear the wrong things. So that's part of where I'm going with this video. I'm going to title this video Fantasy Relationships, because in reality we have real relationships, and then these people want to create fantasy relationships. Everything we do pretty much involves some type of a relationship, and I think I said this in a previous video. When you shop, you're in a relationship. When you're in a romantic relationship, you're in a relationship. Your friendships are relationships. So they would prefer a fantasy world where everyone is plastic, artificial, than the real world. Why? Because the fantasy world is controllable. They have full control over the fantasy. A real person like me, I could say, no, I don't like that, or don't do that, or don't say that. That hurts my feelings. And if someone says, oh, something I said hurt their feelings, I can say, oh, that's a real relationship. A fantasy relationship is when they control what you say. They control what you hear. They control what you see, even if it means doing this. And if you don't like the fantasy world, then they punish you, which goes back to my previous video, pain and punishment. So how this was designed to work is when I do the wrong thing that they don't like, I'll just say, when I do what they don't like, they can punish me. And they felt that that would be the best way to have a relationship with me, by punishing me. And that's their fantasy. So their fantasy is my reality. They're actually doing it. So they took their fantasy world and they designed it to affect my real world. That is a problem. So if I don't like something they're doing, they'll punish me. If I don't like what they say to me, they'll punish me. If I don't want to be part of their schemes and scams, they'll punish me. If they don't like something I'm doing, they'll punish me. Because what they wanted to do is make me into their fantasy person. It's sick. So because I wouldn't go along with being their fantasy person, they felt that they could break me. And at some point, I would go along and be that fantasy person. So what they say now is when I'm talking to you folks, they're having a fantasy conversation in which their fantasy conversation, they hope that I'll, by mistake, say one of their words. And that in their fantasy world means we're in a relationship. I just hit a box. There's a box here. I just hit it with my glasses. So I have to tell you that because they do their knocks, and I want to make sure you guys know when I'm making a real sound versus one of their fantasy sounds. So it's as though I'm here and we're talking and they're over to the side like this because they're having a fantasy relationship with me on the side. And then they said they have a video of me where they can put what I'm saying in their video with them in it, and they have their own little fantasy world, and I don't have to give them permission. I do. They're using my likeness. The same with the book. I would have to give permission for someone to use my likeness, and I didn't. So see, they keep saying a word. I think they said superimposed. So that's their word. So if I was just about to say this and I said that's my point. That would mean I'm part of their fantasy world. So they can come up with their own little group of people in their fantasy world, insert me into it, and we can have this fantasy relationship. That's the problem. That's the problem. So when they're talking back in the background and you guys hear it, a lot of people hear it already, it's inserting me in their fantasy. So I want to go back to what I was saying. So when they're using a word, say, for example, we'll say the word they tried to get me to say. If I say it, then in their minds, they win. They were able to get me to say something. But that's how easy it would be. Could you imagine I'm at work and they're talking in the background and I'm about to say something, and then just because I heard something, my mouth says it and I say it, it wouldn't work. That's how you know it couldn't have happened all along. I would have been saying all sorts of weird stuff and I wasn't. But now you see how easy it is. When they made my ears so sensitive and my head was throbbing, boom, 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 it felt like I could feel every sound, every word. Just it was in my body. So now that isn't as bad anymore, and I'm able to not have that throbbing, they said they use my breathing. So now my breathing regulates the sounds like this. So you know how when you have the radio and it does that, and the beats boom, da boom, da boom, and you can see it like the radio, they have those things. So bing, da bing, da bing. That was my body. So when they try to sync it to my breath, if I hold my breath like that, it won't match. So they get upset. Again, this would require someone to allow it to happen for it to work. If I hold my breath like this, they would have to be quiet. They can't have that happen. So they get angry. And what happens when they get angry? They punish me. So you can tell that this is a system of punishment. It's a system to make victims fulfill their fantasies, fulfill the fantasies of the abuser. And that's what I'm going to call them. They're abusers. So if you don't fulfill the abuser's fantasy and engage in a fantasy relationship with the abuser, you get punished. So if you say the wrong thing, punish, they were talking about having some sort of button. Isn't that sick? But it's not a button. How I know it's not a button in my case is because they're having these conversations as I'm having a conversation. So think of it like this. They wanted me to be able to hang out with certain people. And when I was like, no, that made them punish me. That's what abusers do. When I'm doing these videos and I don't write it out, they can't figure out what I'm going to say. So what they try to do is change the topic. That's another way abusers operate. So when I don't change the topic or I say something my way, then they'll say a word in the background to get me to repeat what they say. Again, that's another form of abuse because I said in a previous video, they want me to sound like they want me to sound. They want me to be part of their fantasy world. But the other key that I think I have to say, because it's obvious, but I want to say it so that they know I know. It's that the abuse is to get me. It's not designed to push me away. So when they said, oh, I could just move, they even said when I was going to move, they were going to apply to where I was moving because they said this is designed to reconnect me to one of their people. So that's exactly what abusers do. When you want to leave, they come up with a way to stop you from leaving. And then they find you wherever you go. And that's why the following is necessary. So I wanted to make sure I connect all of this to why they followed me. So it's not just the surveillance, the following, the abuse, the physical and mental and emotional torture. It's the fantasy relationship. Because the fantasy relationship is something where I'm not allowed to say no. I'm not allowed to think for myself. I'm not allowed to have my own world. They said that they wanted to do this so that I would see things because I have to see what they want me to see. So you see my eyes? This is the result of them insisting that I see what they want me to see. I have to hear them. That's part of the abuse. So getting back to the fantasy relationship part of this, when you're having a fantasy relationship and I'm not, see, they're talking like this and I'm doing my own thing. That's wrong. I got to be punished because I'm not allowed to do my own thing, have my own thoughts, have my own anything. I must be part of what they're doing, and they must be part of what I'm doing. That's how abusers operate. Because in their fantasy, I would want them. You get what I'm saying? Like in their fantasy, they can put me in a book where I'm a big part of a book, and I would be flattered. Why would I be flattered? In their fantasy, they can spend all this money. They said they spent millions of dollars on this. Why would I be flattered? They can talk to me 24/7, force themselves on me. Why would I be flattered? They can make me hear things that aren't being said in the conversation I'm having, meaning I'm in a relationship with you right now. I'm talking to you, you're listening to me. That's a relationship. But they're on the sides trying to ruin the relationship. Why would I be flattered? That's my point. It's clear that these are abusers. I don't have to say it. It's clear. But what's even worse about this, I now get confused. What's worse about this than it was before it was before it wasn't just the abuse. Before, I wasn't sick. So the worst part about this is that they don't stop even when I'm sick. So they said, well, we made you sick. You get it? We made you sick. And now that they made me sick, they still won't stop. It's abuse. I'm not flattered. Thanks for watching.